All right, greetings, everybody. It's great to be able to joining you from the great state of Michigan, although you know I am a former rumpin, as I like to call it. Many years with Jim Manning at the Museum of the Rockies up in Bozeman, and then at the Clark Planetarium, doing all kinds of fun show production and such. But we're having a fun time out here, and we've, like many of you, have been trying to learn how to stay connected with our audiences during COVID, how to still provide programs and services. And so much of what we were doing, like many of you, was online content. And we did a number of things. Sometimes they were podcasts, sometimes they were YouTube videos, but we also did a number of Facebook live streams. And we were really excited to be able to cover things like hot topics and current events. And we also wanted to take a really good look at what kind of topics could we do that had already been popular in the planetarium, but also what kind of subjects, might be timely, might be perpetual hot topics. And so we had a lot of different experiments to do. Well, a big teaching moment came for us when we decided to do a Facebook Live event about the Northern Lights back in January. That show had always sold out whenever we did it in the Dome Theater. And so I thought, well, let's see what happens with this one. And so one of the really interesting factors came along when I decided to post it on Facebook. On the left, you'll see where our numbers would usually come in terms of how many people would view the post, how many people would respond to the post. And within a week of posting our Northern Lights program, which was like a month ahead of time, we started seeing some unbelievable numbers, numbers that, of course, I never really expected. Well, I thought, well, maybe this is just a bump right at the beginning, and so I didn't think too much of it, although it was great to see, and I was happy to note. Well, it kept going, and by the time we got to showtime, the show date, we saw people who actually responded, either interested or saying that they were going, just kind of blew us away, and somehow it went viral and carried all over the place to every country we could even imagine. And so on the night that I actually did the show live, you know how you can look at the monitor and see how many people are actually tuned in live, not just people who said they were interested, but people that actually did check in and watch. And at one point, we topped 102,000 people that were watching the program live. And of course, people commenting from all over the place. And our first thought was, what in the world? What happened? What caused that? So we tried to reflect on the things that might have contributed. And that's what I want to take just a few minutes to try to share with you. Some of them are still just hunches and looking at what people commented on during the program gave us a few clues as to how we might have been able to get such a good following. So first point, we wanted to, which I already mentioned, is considering the subject matter. What would be a topic that everyone seems to be interested in, whether it's black holes or the Northern Lights, of course, but there's other hot topics that you always seem to have people asking you about, or is there life on other planets? I don't know. But if you want to, one of the things we noted is that if I wanted to continue future views of the recorded program, which we did, we decided to consider a perpetually interesting hot topic. That doesn't mean that you couldn't do a special astronomical event or some kind of noted anniversary that's going to be really popular. Those are still, I believe, really good to do. But the subject matter that can really maintain interest was something like the Northern Lights, and because the event was recorded in not just in the Facebook Live or the Facebook videos, but also we made a copy and posted it in our YouTube channel. It did continue to generate a lot of attention, so we were happy about that. What about in the promotion itself? One of the things I wanted to be very mindful of were the kind of words that I would use. I didn't want to use something that sounded dry or educational or lecture-like. I wanted something that had active words in it. So that's why I picked the word see the Northern Lights. And also pointing out that it's a live stream program. Now, I did get a lot of questions saying, well, could that be possibly misleading, making people think that they're going to tune in and just see the Northern Lights live? Well, we tried to make that very, very clear in the description. The description immediately said this is a presentation on how you can see the Northern Lights. We were going to provide some live stream from some of the various cameras that were available around the world, especially up on the northern latitudes during that time of year. And we did provide a little bit of that. And at first we did get a number of comments. You can always tell when people don't read the description, right? You know, comments like, well, I thought you were going to show them to us live. Well, we went back into the comments in the comment window, and there were over 30,000 of them, so it took us a little while to do this survey. But we wanted to see, well, how many people were actually upset or complaining that we weren't really showing the Northern Lights live. It came to only about 3%. And so we thought, well, that's actually pretty good. You know, most people realized, especially at the very beginning of the show when I also clarified, you know, this is going to be about how to show you to go see the Northern Lights. And so we think that was pretty successful. I think I would still use active words like this, even if some folks might think you're borderline, but I don't think we were. The description was clear. Of course, though, I think it is still important to be careful not to lead people into false expectations. So, you know, I would still be careful with some of the wording. The other thing that we wanted to make sure is, I wanted to make sure that there was an image that was very eye-catching, something that would really pop with minimal text. And this was an image taken by a photographer in Iceland. I got his permission to use it, that I found particularly eye-opening, and I even had a lot of people asking about that particular image. So something that really draws attention, not just in the title, but in the imagery that you post. We also found that by cross-posting in as many other places as we could, of course we wanted it on our website, but even any other related websites, whether it was our astronomy club or some of the regional astronomy observing platforms. Locally, we wanted to make sure that we hit the community calendars and the media with news releases. Again, that mostly hit locally, but sometimes those things spread, especially if you're posting things like links to the Facebook page. So it's just kind of like a spider. It just keeps tendriling out to hopefully try to reach more and more folks. And then if there are other institutions that you can choose as co-hosts, that's another way of reaching a lot more people. Of course, there's your parent institution. You know, for us, it's Delta College, but our group also belongs to an organization, an arts and culture group in Bay City called What's Next Bay City. And it's an affiliation of the libraries and the museums and the art studios and the theater and plays and bands, all of them. And so we share not just web pages, but we also share a lot of social media. And so all of that combined activity, media and publicity really also help to reach a lot more people. So I think it really helps to stretch out and make sure that you can cross promote with as many other related organizations and even co-hosting to help expand the reach. Some folks will just post an event on their Facebook page and then hope for the best. And I think you have to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more active than that. Yes, it takes a little bit of time, but once you have established some of those relationships, it really doesn't take much, especially if you've already created the content. It's just a matter of getting somebody else to repost for you or to share in co-hosting for you. It's worth the investment. So these are some other programs that I looked through that drew quite well, both as live programs and then also as follow-up recordings. Of course, they didn't draw nearly like the Aurora program did, but one of the advantages of going viral once is that we saw the number of followers and likes on our planetarium page skyrocket. I mean, before we started this, I think we only had 5,000 likes on our planetarium Facebook page. It jumped to something like 26,000 after that. And followers went from 5,000 to 65,000. So subsequent events really saw a big uptick. They went to 3 or 4 times as much participation after the Aurora show than before it. So these were just a few other things. Obviously, Comet Neowise is something that would qualify as a really popular current event. But amazingly, the binocular program really drew a lot of people too. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that in our presentations, we also tried to emphasize that they were not all just still imagery. We tried to use as much video or animation as we could, and also keeping the text to a minimum. You know, the basics of presentation. Don't read your text word for word on the slides, et cetera, to keep people engaged. Because we wanted to watch and see what happened to the curve of people. I think you all know that when people first tune in, they get an idea of what it's like, and then you'll always see it kind of drop off and level off at some point after the presentation starts. But we maintained pretty well. I think after the peak, it never went below about 75% of that. So the use of good engaging content, I think really helped, and also helped to maintain the continued views afterwards. We felt that it was really important to take a copy and put it on our YouTube page so that it had closed captioning and things like that. And I think the recorded video, you know how you can go to the Facebook page and it stores your live programs in the video section? I think that is approaching about 830,000 views now after the event. Now, I did talk to a few people after this who also decided to do programs about the Northern Lights, and they did well. Of course, it didn't go viral. So there's always a certain amount of luck and unknowns in terms of why some of these things just go crazy like this. I was completely shocked. I thought maybe we would see an increase, but I didn't expect it to just blow up that fast. So, but I think that these are some of the factors that might have helped. And so whether those are things you want to think about or try, you know, maybe it's worth it. I have consulted with a few people on campus who were work in the marketing department, and they had some similar recommendations. So that's really it. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
I'm curious about other topics. I mean, this is something I think planetarium people deal with all the time, and there are some tried and true topics, you know, that seem to always capture imagination. But are there any new? I mean, This is a question for you, Mike, and also for everybody in general. Are there any topics that you think might be untapped that haven't been really explored, but that might be really good?
That's an excellent question, and I think that it's good to pull a lot of heads together at once, like this here, to see if there are any other topics. I mean, there's some of the obvious ones that we like to think about, but I think there's got to be some others. Um, you've got this sudden huge interest in things like SpaceX and commercial space flight, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's something that uh, might be a draw. I've seen a lot of interest on the YouTube channels, a lot of big followings on those.
So Mike, you have a question on the river from Corey, who has her hand up here. She said, did you have any problems with spam on your Facebook page?
Oh, heck yes. That's another warning. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to mention it. When things start drawing that much interest, you definitely start getting people coming in trying to hijack and try to even make money. Unfortunately, almost all of them came from India. But we started getting inundated from people who would duplicate our page similar or make it similar and then post in the comments area. This was before it even started. This was during the weeks before we even gave it, that said, oh, want to see, the Northern Lights live stream? Register here. And so we had a heck of a time needing to try to take those down and warn people not to, that it's free, we're not charging anything, don't give your personal information out, blah, blah, blah. We caught most of them. And I think there are probably some. We tried to get in touch with Facebook, which of course it's impossible. Nobody answers you on Facebook. And to see if there were other measures we could take. I know that there are ways of disabling comments. But if you do, then that means nobody can comment. And so I'm hopefully they're making some improvements to that feature. But yeah, you better be watchful and mindful of some of the hijacking. And we would block them and report them, but they just kept coming. And so all we could do at that time was to keep an eye out and remove and ban certain people. But by the time the program started, I must have banned over 100 people, and they were all from either India or Sri Lanka. I even tried to block anything coming in from that country, but it didn't seem to work.
I think something that some planetariums have tried. Have you tried this at all as a topic? Things that are related to science fiction or blockbuster movies, things that mass media or a lot of people are really big fans of. Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah, I think something sci-fi related could be good, especially if you could find a hook.
There was I attended an online class that was taught by Gibor Basri, who's a astronomy professor at UC Berkeley, and it was on the science and science fiction, and it was actually quite fascinating. He was teaching about the science that's related to what comes up in science fiction, and part of the process was to identify movies. He was asking the people in the class, what movies do you think actually have good science, and what movies are full of it in terms of their science?
That was actually a pretty popular topic way back in a previous life when I was an intern at Strassenberg. Fran Biddy wrote a script in a show called Fiction or Fact, and it was actually pretty well done. And we had a pretty good following for it. So I could see something like that, possibly making it as an online presentation. Well, we're still learning, just like everybody else. So if there's anything that you all have discovered that helps bring more awareness to your online programs, just because we're getting ready to reopen doesn't mean we're going to stop them either. We won't continue to do them as frequently as we did, but that has definitely opened up a new audience and a new following, and we want to continue doing them, even if it's a little less frequently.
And Mike, how big's your staff?
There's 2.5 of me.
Okay.
So I have a full-time show specialist, so he helps me with the shows and production, and a part-time assistant who helps with a lot of the technical and keeping our website maintained, as well as the Digistar system, et cetera, et cetera. So that does help. It gives us more resources to create programs.
Mike, this is Tim Berry again. I just want to respond back to your question about other topics, and somebody mentioned SpaceX. So I'll just offer up. So right now, the STARS Society, or STARS as we call it, we're the South Texas Astronomical Society, and basically it's a bunch of people who look in telescopes and binoculars, and now they want to build a planetarium and science center. So we have we've had mobile programs working with the library. We have a nice digital system. We've worked there with them, and with the Discovery Dome system. So we're doing mobile programs and outreach and online, but we're also there right on the front line in Brownsville at SpaceX. So
Nice.
I can't say that we have any programs yet, but that's one of the things we're going to try to offer is content for everybody from the industrial side of space exploration. But more to come. And it'd be nice if some guy who invented electric cars that just leave us a couple $1 million. That'd be great to start. But everybody's going to get it, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, and I think that there's definitely a lot of hot interest in that right now. I mean, it's just a buzz all over social media.
Yes, well, I have to say that I have never been to Canaveral, so I've never seen a launch, but to watch a landing as well as a launch is pretty cool. So come on down to South Texas.
Thanks, Tim. We're also hoping that we can capture some of those folks who have been watching our virtual programs to come to the planetarium. We're opening up next week, and we're going to see what happens.